There's a slight delay.
Hello.
Hello. I think we're technically live. This is the first time I've done it, so it's
cool.
Totally, I just
it's so fun. It's a learning experience. This is going to be great.
It is. And it's like, I probably shouldn't be trying to watch the live at the same time because there's such a delay that it looks really weird. Okay. I'm just going to keep watching it until I see that you pop in at the same time. Okay, good. Yep, you just popped up there. Okay.
Do you want me to stop my video and mute myself?
Nope, you're all good. I've muted the YouTube, but it seems to be going back and forth between us, which is really, really cool. It's just, there's like a 5-second delay, it seems. So no, I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to just pull down the chat just in case anything comes up. Okay. Let's see. Put that a little bit bigger so I can see it that way. This is so weird. All right. Let's go. We'll go gallery view. I think that works. I just tweeted this out. So hopefully we get some people showing up who want to come talk. Otherwise, we'll just talk and, try to figure stuff out. All right. Oh, there's Colleen. I can admit Colleen in while I am sharing. And okay. Hi, Colleen.
Hi.
I was just telling Katie that it looks like it's working.
Cool.
Yeah, because if I've been tweeting the link out, and if you go to the link, it'll bring up the YouTube, and you'll see that there's like a 5-7 second delay. So right now it's showing me and Katie on screen. Maybe it's more than a 5 second. I think it depends on when you start. Oop, now you're coming in. It's really weird because I've got us three here, and now we're showing up there, but it's like slightly different time, and it's like we're the future and they're the past. So this is bizarre. That's all I have to say right now. I don't see anyone in chat yet, and I don't really see how to know if people are watching. Oh, someone's watching. Hello, one person. That could be me. I have no idea.
That might be me popping in just now to check it.
Which is totally fine. The main thing I wanted to do was just to make sure the technology was working, since we have a discussion about this or using this technology on, what is it, Wednesday? I was going to look, and then I got caught up doing MPCA stuff. Wait, why don't I have it scheduled? Colleen, are you in that one?
Is that the Queer Rep one? Is that the one that we're live streaming?
We are doing that one. Oh, I don't have it in the calendar. No, we're supposed to be doing a one on pedagogy. Okay.
I am not in that one. I do not trust myself with pedagogy yet. I am still new to teaching. I'm not doing that one.
Who is doing that one, and when did I say it was? Well, come on. Yes, we're supposed to be doing one this upcoming week on pedagogy, and I said it was going to be the 28th at 3 p.m. Okay, so I'll put that up again. But yeah, so far this seems to be working well. I mean, what do you two think so far about the tech and how it's working?
Yeah, it seems really well on my end. I can see Colleen, I can see CarrieLynn. Yeah.
I'm impressed. I was worried because my internet is very low quality because I'm very poor. And so I was worried that because I am in the Queer Rep one that we're doing in August that we are live streaming. So that I wanted to test this. And I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to participate in a live stream with my very low quality internet. But yeah, I checked on the YouTube and I'm showing up. So it seems to be working.
And it's great too, because you can tell it's Zoom because Zoom has it, watermarked down in the corner. And you have to go into Zoom to modify some of the settings in the advanced settings. And then it lets you essentially use Zoom as this streaming platform, because there are two ways of doing live streaming on YouTube. And I'm sure all of the young folks, if anyone stumbles on me talking about this, are going to be like, how did she not know this? I've known that for 10 years.
I don't know this. I promise you. I don't know how to do any of this. So I'm glad you're in charge and I just need to show up and talk.
Well, and the trick was when I first tried to do it, and I had like a freak out moment because you have to, of course, do the authorizations and everything. And YouTube wasn't going to let me do it. And that was because we have to say that our channel is not broadcasting anything meant for children. They have some pretty big restrictions in there, which is fascinating. So once I fixed that, it seemed to all go. And as long as you indicate on Zoom under this more that you want to live stream, it just, bing, bang, boom, good to go. But okay, so and we have some people popping in and out. Well, we can get started with the real discussion now, because now I'm done geeking over the technology actually working. So I guess we can just do it as a kind of a standard pop culture dialogue, and kind of just talk amongst ourselves. So first thing with the standard pop culture dialogue is I want to thank everyone for coming, and to say that this is, of course, it's a test of our live stream, as I've been prattling on about it for the past several minutes now, and kind of just wanted to, maybe have a fun conversation about pop culture that's helped us during the pandemic. And actually, as I was thinking about this, not a pop culture that's helped me, but there might be a research question I want to throw out there, see what people think. Just, kind of thinking about, what really helped us, what's been our favorite things to engage with. But before we do that, we throw it over to our participants to introduce themselves. So I'm going to go above me first to Colleen, who's been on the Pop Culture Dialogue, I think a couple times now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, these have actually been really fun. And I like to tell my friends, look, I'm doing professional development and I just get to sit here and talk about pop culture stuff. I get to do fun stuff. But yeah, so this is I think my third or fourth pop culture dialogue now. So I'm Colleen Etman. I am a PhD candidate at the University of South Carolina, doing a PhD in English language and literature with a unfocused specialization currently listed as popular fiction and culture, because I had to make up a new focus since they didn't really have one for me. So we're trying to figure out how to make pop culture sound like it belongs in the English department. But I generally specialize in popular culture literature and how it relates to cultural values and what the things that we consume as cultural media and the things that we enjoy and that we talk about as a culture and how that reflects what that says about us as a culture. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on.
And I think you've talked about in the past, how do the folks over there in the English department, how do they react to your interests?
Generally, approved confusion. They're not stopping me, but they don't know how to help me. My advisor works in comic studies, so she's like, yeah, I want to help you, but we're not quite the same thing. We're just both, we don't fit in with the normal area. So we're kind of sticking together as outside of the norm, but not quite in the same area. She's fantastic, doing her best to figure out how to help me with something that's not her specialization. But neither of us are quite with the standard English department normal coursework. The program director is like, I was worried that he was going to be like, no, you have to choose one of the standard major focus fields that we have. He was like, yeah, no, you can make up your own thing. That just means you have to make up your own thing. And I was like, oh, that sounds very intimidating, which is what we're doing now. I'm trying to put together my comps prep now. And that means I have to put together what my field means. So
well, I hope
fun.
there are, yeah, and I hope there are other folks out in pop culture studies who can help you put together that reading list.
Yeah, I'm trying to put together my committee now, and I have one professor in film and media studies that I'm hoping to drag into my field. So that should be good, and yeah, should be interesting. Should be fun. Should be fun. We're gonna make it fun.
Positive attitude is one of the most important tools for any academic.
And hopefully for getting through comps.
Definitely for getting through comps. And we have below us Katie, who I think this is the first time you've been on one of our dialogues, if I'm correct.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to come on and chat with you folks. This is great. So my name is Kate Heffner. I am a student at the University of Kent in Canterbury. So yeah, I live in England right now, but I'm American, so cool. It's working though. So I study, I'm within the Department of History. I look at women in early science fiction fandoms and how they basically work to shape the genre, like in the mid-century, while resisting some super gnarly, gross, like misogynistic and patriarchal attitudes within fandom. How they negotiated all of that, still became like bad A-word editors, writers, and just really worked to establish some cool fan practices that we still engage in today. So like Colleen, some of my work is not really readable or translatable to some of the medievalists in ye old Canterbury. So I definitely can sympathize with that. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm into.
Do you know Hannah Mueller's work?
I don't, and unfortunately, I feel bad. Yes.
Okay, that might be someone I want to connect you with, but also when you said not fitting in with medievalists, on like a side note, I'm trying to put together this fan studies companion. And I had someone contact me who's interested possibly in talking about, fandoms of the Middle Ages and looking at, everyday life practices back then from the fandom lens. And I think that's really fascinating. So maybe you're not, fitting in so much now, but I think that's, that's coming. And you're like at the forefront.
You have like the cult of Beckett, and you have other sort of like religious groups, and trying to argue like, yeah, but like cosplay in the mid 20th century is really cool. So there's like a disconnect there. I'm really looking forward to learning more from you, CarrieLynn, and getting, yeah, schooled on medievals.
If it makes you feel better, my proposed dissertation is on modern Arthur mythology. And so I just did a semester on medieval Arthur mythology, and I was so out of my depth. And I was like reading medieval French and I wanted to cry. And I was like, this is not my thing. This is so opposite my thing that I don't know what I'm doing. So we're all in this together. Sometimes you're like, what am I doing here? This is not what I'm supposed to be doing.
I mean, like, I'll throw in like a Game of Thrones, like little tagline when they're having like these really like highfalutin conversations about medieval studies, but it just doesn't really convince them at all. You know, like, oh, was this historical actor like Jon Snow? And no, doesn't work. So.
But I think PhDs though are really where that type of research needs to be done, and that type of interdisciplinary mixed methodology, you know, just shaking things up. Because if we didn't have that happening, we would not be making progress.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if either of you need anything from me, just let me know, and I hugely highly support that type of work, and I love watching my arm disappear right now. That's kind of cool. So yeah, I kind of wish I had done more of it, but that's why I'm here to support anyone who needs to do it. And that's kind of why I like these dialogues too, because I think we've gotten some really interesting conversations and mixing of ideas that have come out of it. So Katie, if you ever want to come on to talk about, you know, we haven't really done one on history or different eras in popular culture, and that could be really interesting, or looking at older fan studies and looking at, you know, really pre-20th century popular culture. I know one of my professors at Ohio State University, and I can't remember his last name now, I just remember it's Jared, who does comic book studies and actually comic studies. He wrote recently about popular culture of like the 1800s. And I think looking back at, you know, 1700s and before, and getting not just the folklore approach, but maybe from a popular culture lens. And of course, what the heck is the difference between those two things is something we've talked about and should keep talking about. But the more we can have those discussions, I think would be fantastic, just to, like, you know, what do they call it? Blue sky projects? We need those blue sky projects in popular culture studies. But today is more just kind of a fun day, because so far everything seems to be working. I keep monitoring to make sure the stream is still going. No one really watching us from what I can tell by whatever.
Yeah, but we're having fun, and that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. And this is also being recorded, so it'll be up there. But I kind of then maybe want to talk about this in terms of our own personal observations, but maybe any observations you have like at communal, societal, cultural levels too, in terms of popular culture texts and practices and industries and so forth that have helped us get through the pandemic. So maybe we could start at the more personal level. Like, what's something in popular culture that's helped you, oh God, what is it now, this past 18 months or so? Or is that too much? 15 months?
Somewhere around there.
Either of you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so I was thinking, like, before this, what has gotten me through this? And right now it's kind of hard to remember because I've got this new hyperfixation. And so all I can think about is what I'm doing right now, right? I watched a new show, and it's all I can think about. I just watched, it's not a new show, it's Star Wars Rebels. It was from like 2014 to 2018. I finally got around to watching it because the animation style kind of put me off, and I was like, I wasn't sure, but I watched it. I loved it. I am now obsessed with it. I'm going to get a tattoo. It's all I can think about. So I was like, I can't remember a single thing I've watched over the past 2 years because this is all I can think about. So I was like, all right, so what did get me through the pandemic? And I think I can break it down to two distinct categories that I think also might be a good cultural reflection as well. And so one thing I think is fan fiction has really gotten me through the past year. I think fan culture, fan participation has been a really big thing for me because, one, I love fan fiction. It's a huge thing for me. Being able to take control of things that might be less than satisfactory and make it more appealing. So things that ended in a way that I might not have enjoyed, to go into the, you know, lovely archive and find countless stories that make me feel happier, has been a really good way to get through this very stressful time, right? So going in and a show that I really enjoy, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., ended during the pandemic. And I didn't hate the ending, but I didn't love it. And so going through and being able to read fan fiction after it ended and get more of the kind of cathartic payoff that I didn't quite get from the show, that's what fanfic does for me. It gives you what you didn't quite get out of the canon material. And of course there's, you know, oh, I loved the way the show ended, but I wanted more of it. Or, oh wow, I really hated this, I need fix, right? I love fix. So fanfic has been a really big thing for me. I've spent an unhealthy amount of hours on Archive of Our Own, and I have a very concerning number of tabs open on my phone right now that I'll never read, but they're open there for me if I ever get around to them. And so fanfic has been a really big thing for me. And then the other thing that's been there for me is rewatching things. I was talking about this on Twitter lately, about how summer's a really good time for rewatching things, but the pandemic, I've also been rewatching things a lot lately. And I was thinking about this. I remember reading a study showing that anxious people tend to rewatch things more frequently because I guess it's like a comfort thing, going back to things that are familiar, things that you know how they're going to go, so you're not going to be like shocked or, you know, upset with something. It's kind of like a comfort food thing. And I'm a serial rewatcher. I have things that I rewatch over and over and over again. I have seen the Star Wars movies so many times. I literally could not tell you how many times I have watched them. I have traditions where, you know, like every New Year's I watch all 6 Peter Jackson Tolkien movies. That's my New Year's tradition. And so rewatching is a big thing for me. And so over the pandemic, that has been a really big thing for me. Is, you know, I've watched new things. Obviously, like I just said, I watched Rebels. That's a new thing, and it's been really enjoyable for me. But I've also gone back and rewatched my favorites, like watching the Star Wars movies, watching the Middle Earth movies. I rewatched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again for fun. And I don't know, I feel like that might be something that I obviously don't know what other people have been doing, but I feel like rewatching might be something that other people have been doing. I know like Friends on Netflix. Netflix was a big thing because people were rewatching that. It's kind of like a comfort food thing. So yeah, that's kind of the 2 big things that I feel like have gotten me through this is rewatching my perennial favorites, but also fanfic, which is kind of like the opposite. It's always new, always something different, never the same, countless iterations of the same story.
Do you when you rewatch, because I love rewatches too, but I usually just put them on for background noise because I know what to expect from them, so I don't really have to pay attention. But I don't like working in silence, so I like having the TV on. But are you rewatching with as background noise? Or are you actually like watching?
I'm watching.
Really?
I am. I mean, sometimes like it's bad, and my therapist gets on me about this. Sometimes I'm on Twitter while I'm rewatching, right? Sometimes I'm not giving it my full attention, but sometimes, or most of the time, I'm giving it my attention. I'm watching it to watch it. I do this too with books. I reread all of my books, all the books on my bookshelf. I've read multiple times. I love my romance novels, and I've read over and over again. And so for me, it's not just like putting it on for background noise, or like this is just like a familiar kind of revisit. For me, it's the experience again and again, having that I'm watching this, you know, every time I'm watching Star Wars, I'm watching Star Wars. It's not just like, oh, I want the cantina music on in the background. It's like, no, we're going to a galaxy far, far away. We're gonna have this.
Do you see different things
Colleen?
in it, or? Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
I'll raise my hand next time. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Colleen, I wanted to ask you for some of the franchises or different sitcoms that you've watched. Like, has there been a gap of period or like a period of time that like has passed that you're revisiting like some of these shows, like Friends? Like, has it been like 10 years since you watched Friends, or like what sort of like time frame for rewatching some of these shows have you worked with, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of sitcoms. Like, so with that, that's more of the background noise kind of thing. Like that would be something that I'd put on. That's more of the like back when I had cable kind of deal, like when you would put it on when it was in syndication and you would do that. I haven't had cable in years. That's like a foreign experience to me now. Now it's all streaming and everything, right? So now if I'm watching something, it's because I've set out to choose something. And so now if I'm watching something, it's because I specifically want to watch that specific thing. And yeah, it's kind of mostly a handful of things that I watch and rewatch, I guess. So yeah, I mean, there are things that I watch, like I said, like every year I'll watch the same thing every year at the same time. Some things that'll go further apart than others. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about it before.
Those are really big time commitments too. If I mean, just like thinking about the Star Wars movies and the Rings and Hobbit movies, good Lord, that's a lot. But if you're starting to think about series, like I rewatched the Buffy series, all 7 seasons, and it was remarkable how long it took to actually get through all of that again. Those are commitments.
Yeah.
Well, Katie, what's been helping you get through the pandemic?
Yeah, I just really want to echo what Colleen and you have spoken about rewatching and sort of like the comfort of being able to rewatch. Mostly for myself, like I have been rewatching things that aren't necessarily considered within the genre of science fiction, just as something that is more less analytical, because that's just how my brain works. No bingo with like, Haraway there, and okay, I see what they're doing. That's Andrew Butler's, argument. So I can't, I have to limit myself. So one of the rewatches that I did do that is kind of tangentially within like the genre of science fiction was I started the rewatch of Lost. And I laugh, right? Because when the series ended, like fans took to like all different places and it's like, oh, the series is so disappointing. And, they're so upset with the outcomes and there's so much critical things for them to unpack and what was the meaning of life. And I felt like in a very sadistic way, it was a great series to watch, like in lockdown, especially the second season, where you have like a character who is like in quarantine underground, who must press a button, like a certain mathematical amount of time and what have you. So that really resonated with me, and it had been really long time since I had seen it originally. And I was able to do some internal work, like, oh, problematic faves. Okay, what's this about? Like, maybe I should revisit some of my, my attachment to certain franchises and stuff. Another thing that has really helped me survive the pandemic has strangely been the Golden Girls, which is ripe for critical unpacking, both like in a like a way of like therapy, because once you think about it from an outsider's perspective, I am a person in quarantine in my apartment staring at 4 older women who are also in an apartment in a different on a different couch. With that, the couch is much more lovelier than my couch. It's pink, there's florals, it's great. But again, watching through Golden Girls, which was just released through Disney Plus's UK streaming system here in England. We just got it like earlier in July. It's been a really tender and emotive process while sort of looking at some of the ways that they problematize sexuality, queerness. They look like interracial relationships are also examined in a way that's problematic. There's so much there that's ripe for unpacking. And yeah. I'm kind of thinking about Golden Girl / too. So if you go on OTW, Colleen, don't call me out. Like, I may have to just do some like Blanche stuff, but don't. Yeah. So that's what's been getting me through.
Okay, I just have to follow up on the Golden Girls because the reason why I laughed is, okay, so I'm 43 and I grew up watching the Golden Girls when it originally aired, Saturday nights with Empty Nest. And no one seems to remember Empty Nest, but everyone remembers Golden Girls. And it was about 5 years or so, I think, ago, maybe later, when I started noticing how much millennials really latched on to the Golden Girls. And my partner and I, who's slightly older than me, we're like, what is going on? Why do they like the Golden Girls so much? And I think part of it then got us thinking, okay, well, kind of Golden Girls has become a cult show, hasn't it? It was a huge hit, but it's lasted long enough and had all of these different impacts that it's actually a cult show. And I had to put it in our book on the greatest cult TV shows of all time, just because of how much people still love it and the impacts it's still having. So to hear that you're looking at the Golden Girls, both, from this fan perspective and from even a critical scholarly perspective during the pandemic, I love that because there is something really fascinating about that show that's making it transcend the 90s and the cultural historical moment in which it came out. And I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. You're really generous in your comments. I just feel like Blanche is like a pleasure ancestor to me. Like, I just love how, just kind of what an amazing and also problematic character she fulfills. That is just like contoured by the sweetness and endearing aspect of Betty White, who is just, Midwestern, which living in Iowa, like I totally get that sweet little, so thanks.
Well, and I was growing up in Wisconsin, so yeah, I was totally into that, but I was always more B. Arthur's character, because I love the no nonsense, the eye rolling, the sarcasm. I thought that was fantastic. And we talk about this in the book because it's fascinating the extent to which the gay community picked up on the series too at the time and since then. But what I didn't know, of course, growing up, was how much the actors themselves were really proponents for gay rights and HIV issues and everything like that. So I'm so happy to hear that it's living on and more people are looking at it. It's kind of like it's a modern day I Love Lucy in terms of the impact that it's continuing to have, which, love it. Can't wait to see the biopics on it, I guess. There was something else you said now, and I can't remember what it was because I went off on the Golden Girls. Oh, I remember. Okay, so I just want to say quickly my two things because they're very different and they had very different impacts on me. So the good one was Animal Crossing New Horizon. I'm not a huge video game player. I grew up, my younger brothers played more and I would watch them, but I would play some things like I love puzzle games and I love games where I don't lose. So if I can cheat, like I had a Star Wars Revenge of the Sith game that I absolutely loved, but I cheated the entire time to get through it because I don't like, not being able to win. So Animal Crossing, I'd never played before. I'd heard of it. And I was really excited for when it was going to come out. So much so that I stayed up until midnight for the day it was going to launch just so I could start playing it. And that was, what was it, March 20th or so, I think, in the US. So basically a week after lockdown started. And I have essentially played it every day since. There's only been a couple days where I haven't played it. Like one day this week, I got busy this week. And then when we went up north for July 4th this year. But even when I went to MPCA last October, we brought our Switch with us so I could play Animal Crossing. So I was playing it every single day. I've captured everything you can capture. I've, got the house as maxed out as possible. I've really tailored a lot of it. And I still go in every day just to check on things. It's calming. It gives you that sense of control over things when you don't have a lot in control. And it's just, kind of fun to go to the beach, and especially because you can go swimming and you can go catch things. And somehow during the winter, this beach turns into a frozen place, just like I grew up in. And it's very comforting and calming. The other one that is kind of the opposite of it is I started watching, how do I want to put it? What's the genre? Outbreak movies, I guess. So probably really stupidly of me. The pandemic really started here during my university spring break. So in 2020. And I had just, the night before my spring break, I was trying to fix our toilet and I dropped the toilet lid, that big ceramic thing that covers the lid, on my foot. So I was basically lying on the couch for days. But that Monday, I remember sitting there and following Twitter and seeing more and more news reports. We're starting to see the universities saying they're switching to online. You start to see the conferences closing down and everything. And I was starting to freak out. And I thought, okay, I need to calm myself. So I put in 27 days later, or 28 days later, the zombie movie, where the zombies start because of a viral outbreak. Yeah, that wasn't smart. That did not help me calm down. Couple months later, especially when the misinformation started going kind of crazy because of Trump, I read a graphic novel about the 1918 Spanish flu. And that helped in the sense of seeing the parallels. It helped in knowing that, humanity has gone through this before and we made it out. So that was nice. it really didn't help in seeing that humanity basically made the same mistakes back then that they made now. And all of these, snake oil salesmen coming along and saying, well, I've got the cure, and people saying, well, I'm not going to wear masks, everything back then to now. Then a couple months after that, I rewatched Steven Soderbergh's Contagion. And oh my God, the fact that he basically described in that movie a lot of what we went through, even with the fact that, there's that theory that it started from a bat flu that then moved into humans. That's in Contagion. The nice thing is we never had the mortality rate. In Contagion, they have a really bad mortality rate, and society really collapses. And I remember talking to this conservative back last summer, and he said, well, as soon as we stop getting access to meat, this was his thing, it was meat, you're going to see society crumble. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. In the movie, it really crumbles really fast. So it was, in a weird way, it was comforting to, look at how bad things could have gotten, because we didn't hit 28 days later. We didn't even hit Contagion. It's basically just the Spanish flu all over again. And I think that one I really recommend, because recognizing what happened during the Spanish flu, recognizing how long it really took, helps you to get a better perspective on what's happening now, especially with the Delta and now this Lambda variant's coming out. We're not done. There were idiots back then. There appear to be idiots now, but humanity went on. So kind of hopeful, I guess, that at least humanity will go on. I don't know. I don't know where to go with that. That's just how I'm ending, I guess.
Can I comment and say that what I'm hearing is that it sounds like there's like definitely like a resilience in your viewing practices and like your deconstructing and close reading of these texts. For me, like I had braver friends that were like, yes, I'm gonna read The Yellow Wallpaper while in quarantine, or like look at like chaos theory and like all of these other sorts of like I'm gonna rewatch The Walking Dead, and for me, like I was like, I don't know if I could be that like resilient and thoughtful and embodied to face this and be so present in it. So like props to you, CarrieLynn. That was like something that I still cannot touch. I was trying so hard to control my facial features. When you're like 28 days later, I'm like, that's totally okay.
But okay, this is the same woman. I'm the same woman who last summer I started collecting seeds out of my garden because I thought if Trump got reelected, we were in big trouble. So I went into prepper mode a little bit. I even bought essentially a prepper's collection of seeds. It's like, if doomsday happens, at least you have these heirloom seeds and you can regrow and stuff. And we converted part of our basement shelving into a pantry. So we've been storing goods, and we've been doing it over a year now. It may not stop really at this point because it seems like a good idea. And even long before this, and I don't know what this says about me, sometimes to fall asleep, I like to tell myself stories. This is something my mom told me. If you have trouble falling asleep, go through a story in your head. Well, sometimes my stories are apocalyptic. Like, I go through my head, okay, I live outside of Chicago. What would I do if a nuclear blast destroys Chicago? Because I'm 15 miles away. I could possibly survive that. What would I do? Or what would I do if zombies attacked? well, I got my swords upstairs. I could barricade this, barricade that. This is literally what will go through my head to try to make me fall asleep. I don't know what that says about me. I really don't at this point.
Because you're better off than I am, so.
I don't know. I think it means I'm like looking for like the worst thing that could happen and thinking about how to survive it. And that sounds horrible to me. I don't want to be a prepper.
I don't necessarily like, yeah, I noticed like I purchased a lot of like canned foods and canned goods when I was writing a chapter on Cold War domesticity this past and you know, bunkers, backyard bunkers, and having like grandma's pantry, which is ready in the case of like nuclear fallout and what have you. And it's also, for me, like stocking up on like just like basic canned goods also let me feel like, ooh, like if the event that somebody in my care network needs soup and they don't have soup, like I better be number one on their list. Like I am not the bloke that's like taking all the toilet paper in the grocery store. Like I I have soup and Golden Girl recommendations, season 3, episode XYZ, depending on what you're feeling. That's just the person that I am. So, Carrie, where are you located, if you don't mind me asking?
Glenview, Illinois. So it's basically, if you know where like Northwestern University in Evanston is, we're just slightly north of them. Northwest, I guess.
Awesome.
It's a nice place. But there was also one thought that has gone through my mind, because we live in this townhouse, in a row of townhouses, and there's this big open yard in front of all these townhouses. And at one point last summer, I was like, should I talk to the manager about ripping up that entire yard and planting a garden just to be on the safe side? Whatever we need to do, let's do this and let's get it done so that we can survive. So I like those things. But that's kind of like a personal level. Now, if we think like in the last 15 minutes or so here on a social cultural level, what are some things we've noticed, you know, helping people? And I just want to make 2 quick ones. One is maybe positive, maybe the other one's negative or positive. I guess it depends on your perspective. One, I think, is definitely Baby Yoda, whatever he's called now, Grogu or whatever. Baby Yoda helped a lot of people get through by the looks of it. And I mean, it's evidenced by the fact that I haven't even seen the series yet, and I found this cross stitch that I'm currently doing. So Baby Yoda. But, and this is a big research question, and I would love someone to do this study. I wonder how much online porn helped people get through the pandemic. I really want to know that, because I have a feeling it really did. But what do you two think? What helped society, culture, large group? What helped them get through the pandemic so far?
Something that Katie said earlier reminded me of something. Katie was talking about revisiting old things and realizing how problematic they could be. And I remembered Unproblematic Fave held up really well, that everybody revisited was last summer when Avatar: The Last Airbender came on Netflix. And it had the Avatar Renaissance, and everybody rewatched it for the first time since they were kids, right? When millennials, my age group, got to revisit it, and it holds up, right? This is a fantastic show, really good representation, really good handling of really deep themes. I wrote a chapter on it right around this time, so I was rewatching it anyways. And I think that was a really good timing, really good show to kind of hit. That was, I think that hit right around the beginning of May. So right around when things were bad, people were starting to get tired of the pandemic. Things were kind of intense, but also we were just getting over that first really bad spike. So yeah, that was a really big one. And then also culturally, the return to the Marvel universe, 2020 being very Marvel free with the shutdown of theaters and everything, but now with Disney Plus starting up, we had WandaVision being this big cultural thing, right? People were talking about it. We had the return to weekly television instead of binge culture, water cooler talk, despite the fact that we're all remote. So kind of a different approach to it. And really, this might also be a mixed bag of the talk being sometimes very negative about these shows, the kind of conflict in the fan culture and the online communities, especially there's a lot of it with Loki, and the shipping communities have been having some fun, and by fun I mean very much not fun. So it's been interesting to watch. There was a lot of that with well, less so with shipping and more so with just not great people in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And so with the return to the Marvel universe and return to weekly shows with the Marvel Disney Plus series, we've seen a lot of really interesting kind of fan culture and fan interaction. So those are my two big cultural things.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens when more and more fans get together in person again. Like, I mean, San Diego Comic-Con is right now and it's completely virtual, but I know here in Chicago, we have C2E2 from Reed Pop, and they're going to be in person in December unless something really dramatic happens. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to watch people interact with each other again.
Can I jump in and just echo what something that Colleen said? Thank you so much for, mentioning WandaVision. And I think this may fit very well within our discussion about rewatching culture and how comforting rewatching some of our the media and the franchises that we've been effectively connected to. So I just want to give a quick little shout out to Sabrina Mittermeier, who has written about amazing scholar, super. So there was a article on basically WandaVision and rewatching, folks that rewatch media and how Wanda approaches trauma through these very significant, storylines. And I felt and it was such a watershed moment for me where it was wow, this really is picking up on the zeitgeist of the moment of folks, like Colleen has said, rewatching Friends, and envisioning or remembering what life was pre-pandemic and where they are now. So yeah, thank you so much, Colleen, for mentioning that. I just wanted to get in a little WandaVision fan love.
Well, Katie, do you think there's anything else on that cultural societal level that's really helped a lot of people get through it this past 15 months?
Definitely Baby Yoda. I have mine on my little, sure. It's right there on my couch, definitely Baby Yoda. I love how everybody has upped their meme game on it just seems like there's definitely been like more of an investment in meme culture. And I don't know if this is, I think this could be contested, but definitely seeing more Simpsons references since the pandemic started, which is great, which is lovely. Yeah, that's kind of what I have been like broadly seeing. But then again, like I'm just one person in my flat watching Golden Girls on constant repeat, a person on a couch watching 4 older women on a couch. So don't take my word for it.
Right? Like right now, it's all Rebels all the time. That's all that I can think about. It's like, what is the world doing? I don't know. I'm in Star Wars animated cartoon land. That's all that there is. Nothing else exists. But I think it's also like 2020, I don't want to say is devoid of cultural impact, but because of the pandemic, so much was put on hold that we really did lose so much. I mean, there were still really big moments. Like obviously we did have the Mandalorian did have its big moments. And I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did have its final season. So like for me, there was that. She-Ra concluded, which was fantastic. I cried. I stayed up until 3 a.m. and watched it all in one sitting. I'm writing a chapter on that. But right, there was a lot less, it feels like, in 2020 than we're used to, right? Like in years before, we had things like Game of Thrones, the Avengers Endgame and everything. And so like thinking back on 2020, the only really big moment we can think of is Baby Yoda, right?
That actually makes me think about this idea of maybe 2020 was kind of devoid of having these big moments that kind of had ramifications across all cultures and across larger cultures. And 2020 maybe seemed more focused on specific niches and fandoms. Like I know live streaming was really helped through 2020 because a lot of what had been in live in-person type events, they would do live streaming as a way to replicate it. So for example, you had like the cast of Parks and Recs doing a reunion show, and you had the cast of Community doing it. So you had all of these niche little things that maybe didn't have as big of a pop cultural footprint as like Avengers Endgame or even Baby Yoda. But for that particular fandom and that particular popular culture, that was a big thing. You finally have like, you know, all of these people coming together. And it makes me think then when you're both talking about rewatching and comfort food and these things, about how important maybe nostalgia was for getting us through the pandemic. Because again, it gets to that idea of, you know, if you're in anxious times, if you're feeling anxiety, nostalgia can really help you get through that because you can think back to better times. I mean, that's what Trump ran on and everything, the whole Make America Great Again. So it's interesting to wonder as we move out of the pandemic, whether it's this year, next year, 2 years from now, and we get back to whatever normal is in the future, the extent to which nostalgia will still be, you know, as powerful, or will people be so tired of it at that point that all they want are new things?
It's interesting too, like when you are, sorry, I just want to throw this out there, like as a, but it's interesting to see younger generations get into, like a franchise, and you're like, oh my gosh, welcome to the community, buddy. Like I started rewatching Futurama because one of my academic nibblings was, you know, 10 years old, super obsessed, like with Bender, and wanted me to knit them a Bender. So like I was watching Bender knitting or watching Futurama, knitting them a bender. They were always asking me, where is my, bender? Where is my precious little plushie that you're making me? So I think in that way, like, there's like a extended comfort that's not as immediate with folks, but like that shared, hey, we both are into this, even though like I'm 20 plus years like you're senior. So yeah, good way to pass the time.
I do wonder though, Katie, so for that bender, is it going to come with the saying of bite my plushy fabric ass? Because he's not shiny or metal, sorry.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my academic nibbling, their mom is my supervisor for my PhD. So there is no profanity. It is like, okay, like, here's your plushie. And I thought about making like a little beer bottle for the, and I was like, nope, that too young, can't do that. Want to finish this PhD? Yeah.
I think this is like one of the most interesting things about, well, popular culture, at least during the pandemic. I'm not just going to say about the pandemic because because even thinking back to, again, the 1918 Spanish flu, how different it is now because of the internet and because we have so many popular culture texts and practices and industries out there that allow us to find ways to connect and to pass time and to have the nice feelings of nostalgia. And to think about like 1918 and not having that, how hard it must have been to really be in isolation back then. And I'm, for all of the horrible things going on right now, I'm glad we at least have our popular culture and our ways to connect with people through our technologies.
And even like going back to all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, thinking about when I was talking about fan fiction, like the connection there to the fan communities and all the other fans that care so much about these properties that want to have this connection and further this experience. Like that's so intense. And even if it's just a matter of like kudos on AO3, like that's a really good connection. But I got a comment on one of my fics like that hit at a really good or bad time depending on how you want to view it, and like it made me want to cry because it was just like I'm isolated and I'm sad and depressed because this world is this world, and then somebody that I will never know, some stranger on the internet, read this story that I wrote about Goose from Captain Marvel and was like, yeah, this is fantastic, and wrote a comment. And I was just like, in this moment I feel really connected with another human being. And it's like pop culture and fan culture and everything like that's a connection that, you're right, the internet really gives us, pop culture really gives us, and I think that really does make a huge difference right now.
I like that as a way to conclude. Katie, do you have anything you'd like to add to that sentiment about, affect and connection and this pandemic that may be helping us realize the importance of both to our lives?
Yeah, I super props to Colleen for creating during the pandemic and for doing close reading, extracting, and working to build like these narratives that are so important to these communities that give so much like joy and pleasure and like a profound sense of belonging. Some of the fanfic that you can read is just like, took my breath away. Like, take my money. I want to read all of it. So yeah, I guess in conclusion, like, why would anybody else study anything other than pop culture? Duh, like, we're the best. Like, we do so much. Like, we're the healers. We're like the amazing like scholars. Like, we do so much creative like work. So yeah, that's my mic drop moment. Like, I'm done. Like, that's it.
Well, I want to end on that one because I think that's fantastic. All right, so thank you anyone who's joined us, or if you're watching this later, I hope you found this an interesting, useful conversation. And like I said, please do the study on porn and during the pandemic, because I want to see that study, because I'm really fascinated by porn studies, but my Catholic university probably wouldn't be. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Colleen and Katie, for sharing with us. I think there's some really great insights and really great discussion. And I look forward to seeing you all in the future and another dialogue.